I
Okay,
second.
moved and seconded. Moved by Wellington, seconded by Nate. Have you had a chance to read the minutes, anybody? Any additions or deletions?
It should be fine with all the minutes.
Yeah, I only made my only correction to the, as far as Dr. Pepin, us rescinding his, approving and rescinding his resignation. So, so if there's no additional additions or deletions, then we have a roll call.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, public comment. Frank, you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to share some information I got in Harrisburg. About 2 weeks ago, I went to Harrisburg Capitol with the mayor. The mayor was attending some Hispanic American Heritage events. And during that, I met with the Democratic Executive Director of the House Urban Affairs Committee. So we chatted for a little bit, and he was sharing with me some pending legislation that's expected to pass both chambers of the legislature. So I just want to share it briefly, and I did email the chairman, and I did email the community development director on this proposed legislation. I'll just, give you a quick 30-second summary of what it is, but it's good news because I believe it's a new tool that the Redevelopment Authority is going to have next year. It's Senate Bill 940, and it's already passed in the Senate. It's passed the Urban Affairs Committee, which is chaired by Representative Calderon from Reading. It's currently in the Appropriations Committee, and it's expected to go to the House to be passed. And this bill is very important because it gives the cities and redevelopment authorities another tool to file. When you file against blighted property, you condemn a property because it's blighted. It's my understanding the current process is you have to file in the county at the courthouse, but you have to give notice to the owner on record. And that is a real challenge at times because a lot of these properties could be abandoned. It's hard to find an owner. It's a P.O. box. And you need to give notice in order to proceed with either a possible lien or a possible some kind of movement against the property, but particularly even a lien. So this new bill will give the ability to be able to file notice at the Recorder of Deeds. So instead of trying to hunt down the owner of the property, if you can even find that person, so you're able to file your lien against the property in the Recorder of Deeds. So there'll be a process at the Recorder of Deeds that you could follow, and it makes it easier and it creates more simplicity, but it also it still protects the interest of the owner of the property, but you get to file at the Recorder of Deeds, so it keeps the process moving forward. Because otherwise, the process could take an additional couple months, maybe even possible a year. So I sent all this information to the chairman and the community development director. I just thought it was a good community update. And when the legislation passes, Representative Calderon will send me the passed legislation, and I'll pass it on to you guys. Just one more tool to fight blight. Just thought it was a good information I wanted to provide you today. So that's my report.
Thank you, Frank. As we move forward here, we're going to be, I'm going to be getting with the solicitor to lay out so we can put in some kind of policy or informational thing for the board as far as the process to get these buildings from the blighted list or, however we acquire them, so that the board knows fully, because I've had a couple of people ask me, how does this actually work? Being the new guy here, I don't know, but I'm going to learn real fast, and so are we. So I'll be working with Keith and possibly Jamal on that, and we can get all that in writing so the board knows exactly. Because as I said in the past here, we want to start moving buildings getting them to development into good hands, and really start moving on this stuff instead of holding on to all these properties for so long and paying gobs of insurance money on them.
Mm-hmm.
Knows what else. So but thank you, Frank. Does anybody have any questions for Frank?
No,
Question.
good. I do have a question.
Franklin?
Now, this blight property, I assume, Mr. Frank, that there are responsibility of the owners to pay their taxes. Now, tell me something about all the lien that is on this property, the taxes that is owed on this property. Who pays these taxes? And are these people who own these property own any other properties in the city? And how do we go about reclaiming the taxes that was unpaid? Is it by taking possession of the property?
Mr. That's a question for our solicitor.
You in most situations you will not get the tax dollars back. You, once you take it, will be responsible for the tax indebtedness. It's just like a condemnation. The process is very similar to condemnation. So when you take it with all the liabilities that are associated with it.
The one thing I noticed about this legislation, and it's kind of a side note, it says this legislation also allows municipalities to recover the cost of recording the condemning order, either from a tax sales proceed or directly from the purchase. So it says here that even if there's a free and clear, that lien on the property will not be affected by an upset sale, judicial sale, or repository sale. So I don't know what kind of costs it does to record these types of process, but we have the ability to recoup the money. But that doesn't change what the solicitor said. What the solicitor is saying, obviously, is the whole process. But this,
yeah, I'll pull the proposed legislation and add it. I already have an outline that I can circulate to the board, because we were doing a lot of blighted property work about 3-4 years ago maybe, and we had a committee with some younger realtors and the city clerk, and we had an outline at that point in time. So I can dig up that outline and then see how the proposed legislation affects that outline.
great.
Wellington, did you have anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Everything was clarified.
Okay. Is that okay for you, Mr. Fleming?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Frank, for coming in and giving us a briefing on that. And I do have that. I'll circulate that to the board as soon as I get off here. Keith, I'll get it to you as well. Okay. Moving on to approval of bills payable. I circulated the bills payable list, but I want to take care of a piece of this prior to approving the expenses here, because we got to have enough money in our business account to do this. So I think it's proper that we address that first. So I'm going to ask for a motion to move $60,000 from our Penvest account over to our customer's business account. This will help, pay the bills here, because you see one of the bills is pretty big on our unpaid bills list. So I have a motion to approve moving $60,000 from our Penvest account to our customer business account. Somebody say something.
I make the motion.
Wayne made the motion.
I second it.
Wellington seconds it. As I just said, it's just simply moving monies around, and so we have a record of it, and it's board approved to do this. So any comments or questions about that?
No.
Hearing none. Denny?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to bills payable. As you see the list here, it's kind of a short list, but one big one going to our insurance. I finally got what we're paying insurances to as far as the authority. We're paying for general liability. We're paying for liability, correct, Denny?
Correct.
Okay, and we're also paying for board insurance. And if you see the list here, it has $2,320. And what that is board insurance for us, if we get sued for some reason, and that's a necessity, I can tell you. So do I have a motion to approve the bills payable in the amount of $64,896.55?
So that's how much it's gonna cost us?
The bills payable, did you get, I sent the list out to everybody. Did you get it?
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look over it, but it's 60,000 what?
No, I think it's for the general liability. That's a smaller one, Denny, right?
Sorry.
We
The
pay
one
three.
for the, correct.
We
The
pay
big one
three.
is like 74,000 is the big one. But those
Right.
are coming down with the sale of some of our properties.
Right. So we have, actually it's 79,000. So you have one for 79,000. That's already been paid this year. This one is for the middle insurance that we pay, which it attributes to the building and liabilities anyway, or properties, which is $56,347 there, Nate, if you want that number.
Okay, and do we put an RFP out for these for the insurance, or who does the shopping around for it?
Well, what I intend to do is, as we get closer to the new year, I'm going to get with the insurance carrier, our insurance carrier, and see, what the tenure of those insurances are. And then I think we should do a shopping around to see if we can get the best rates. Absolutely, to your point, Nate.
Awesome. I can volunteer and assist in that.
Sure,
We
absolutely.
have EHD, who's our broker, who does the shopping around for us.
Okay, I think, Nate, though, that we should.
Nate's question.
Yeah. So we know we're getting the best value for our dollar.
Yeah,
You should always do that. It's very healthy.
correct.
So do I have a motion to approve the bills payable? Nate, you moved it, correct?
Yes, I can move that.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Aye.
Wellington seconds it.
In
Any-
favor? All in favor? Sorry.
Oh,
Aye.
Aye.
aye. Okay. Moving on here, we have a audit presentation from our friend at Herbine and Company, Mr. Chris Tertel. Chris, you're up.
Thanks, Ernie. I'm actually going to share my screen here. All right, so everybody should be seeing a presentation here, hopefully.
Sure.
Perfect. So as Ernie said, my name is Chris Tertel, and I'm a partner with Herbine and Company. Going to spend a few minutes going through the December 31st, 2019 audit here for the Reading Redevelopment Authority. Do a brief introduction. We'll review the auditor's report for the year ended 12/31/19. Some financial highlights, some communications from us, and then some required communications to the board. So first and foremost, to let you know, we do our audit under two standards out here. We have the generally accepted auditing standards, which is what we audit for the financial statements themselves to make sure they're materially correct. And the second is government auditing standards, and that's when we look at the controls over financial reporting. We don't give an opinion on internal controls, but it's just an area where we can review to see if there's any improvement that we see on the controls that we review. And our responsibility is giving you an opinion on whether the financial statements are materially correct under generally accepted auditing principles, accounting principles. Happy to say we have unmodified opinion, so clean audit opinion. We did have some adjustments. We helped some reclassifications really than anything else. Some complicated transactions this year with the recording of the property sale and the relieving of the debt for that sale. But overall, unmodified opinion, clean audit opinion from us. And just a reminder, our objective wasn't then to audit the internal controls. This is an opinion on whether the financial statements are presented in all material respects. So what do those financial statements look like? So quick changes in net position. So left-hand column 2019, right-hand column gives you a comparative for 18. Sale of property. So in 2019, that is the sale of the 2nd Washington Street lease to the parking authority. That's the 119,316. The first orange bar will show you the operating revenues then for the authority this year was 159,631. Considerably lower than last year. Didn't sell as much property. And the property that you've been selling is also your revenue generating property. So you're selling off property you are actually getting lease revenue from. So your rental income is going to continue to decline as we move forward here. Under administrative expenses, Chairman Schlegel there already pointed out the insurance line item. So you can see the insurance, a large jump this year, first green orange bar. And we went back and forth talking about this. It was the first year, it was actually 6 months worth of the liability policy for the first time in 2019. So that policy was not in place prior to 2019. And the policy runs from July to June. So 6 months of 2019. You prepay the entire policy at once. So the other 6 months will be in a prepaid. We'll see that in a minute to go towards your 2020. But that is the larger policy. That's the one that Dennis was alluding to that was over $65,000 last year. And again, being split between the 2 years. The second green bar there shows the sale of the properties, and that was the sale of the Dana South property. The $44,000 represents the difference between the cost that the authority paid for the property, less the amount the city negotiated to pay with Fulton Bank, and the payoff of the related debt. So the 44,000 is a net number of actually removing the debt and the property off of the Reading Redevelopment Authority's books. Think of it as a two-step transaction. Even though the city negotiated and paid straight to the bank for you on your behalf, in essence, it kind of went through the authority and then to the bank is how it's actually recorded through the ledger. So net operating income, $5,272. Below that, you'll see these big $833,000 numbers that cross off one another. That is the last payment from the RCAP that went to the hotel. So that was the last withholding payment. It's usually about 5% that the state withholds until they're satisfied. So that just passed right through the authority to the hotel project. So the last green bar will show a negative 81,891. That is the change in net position, or that would be your loss for the current year, bringing your net position or your retained earnings, if that's more comfortable for you, down to $1,137,465. Any questions on this?
Any questions?
Just
You bring it back to the previous screen, please?
absolutely, sir.
Okay. The last line on the bottom where it says net position end of the year,
Yes, sir.
does that amount include the properties that we have?
I'll tell you what, you made me flip back, but it's actually right here on this screen.
Okay, good.
So this screen here will show you that 1,137,000 is the bottom left-hand number. You'll see that number right there. That number consists of 635,179 in cash, which is almost majority or more than a majority in that PA Invest account that you're transferring money from. And then 475,000 of that is the property held for development. So from a liquidity standpoint, of the 1,000,001, about 600,000 was cash at the end of 2019. Does that answer your question?
Good, thank you.
Absolutely.
So I do have a question on the non-operating revenue expenses.
Yes, sir.
You spoke about a hotel. Can you, as a new member of the development committee, can you help me understand the word hotel involving in this?
Sure. So as a means of obtaining some grant funding for the DoubleTree Hotel that was built in Reading, the authority actually applies for a grant as a government agency on behalf of the nonprofit for the hotel. So the RCAP, which is a state-funded program, the authority actually applies for that grant on behalf of the hotel. They get the money then and pass it through to the hotel to fund the construction project. You're just a conduit because it needs to be a government agency that actually has to apply for that grant.
See.
Tree is the one that benefits in this case
What was
from
that?
that grant.
Well, the theory would be that the citizens of the city would be the ones that benefit overall, but I'll lead you to make your own minds up on that. I'm just reporting the news.
Right, it's just a legal conduit
Correct.
to move funds around to, different development projects. Yes.
Yep. And the theory is that it's bettering the community as a whole, and that's why it's coming through the Redevelopment Authority to get there. But it's a zero-sum effect for you because you're just passing that money through. And we'll talk about that in a minute here.
But Mr. Terrell, can the authority benefit from that in the future if they are going to apply for a grant and benefit a for-profit organization? Would the authority be able to charge additional point on the interest, for instance, or would they be able to apply a charge for the legal fees that they incur?
So, and I think that's part of what the authority has not necessarily done in the past is looking at the indirect costs. And I think that's where we're going here is the administrative costs that the authority actually does incur to facilitate these grants. And normally, you know, in my experience, even with conduit debt, so when you get to a larger redevelopment authority where you're actually borrowing money that for somebody else through a loan, there's a cost to doing that. And you have not charged a fee necessarily for that in the past, and you'll see that just flowing completely through. And part of the strategic plan, when I look forward to the authority and I think, where are your recurring revenue sources going to come from? Where can this be? You should be looking at that. There is an administrative cost to providing that service.
Yes.
I can probably provide a little background on that. We have, when we've done conduit financing, taken fees in connection with the conduit financing. Some of the bonds allow administrative fees to be taken. Some of the bonds do not allow administrative fees to be taken. I think with the hotel project, we did not seek administrative fees because we were the seller of the land that the hotel now currently sits on. So we felt, I think at the time, that we made our money in the deal when the land transferred to the hotel real estate group from the Redevelopment Authority.
And that's a really good point. The grant agreements themselves and the bond agreements really do dictate what you are allowed and not allowed to do. So I think that's an excellent point, Solicitor. And a history lesson is always important too. One thing I do want to mention here that was part of our audit process, I mentioned that we look at internal controls, and we look at the internal controls over financial reporting. And there was two items that they were concerning to us. And the one during 2019 was just a segregation of duties. Without an executive director for the entire year, and a lot of changeover in the board, you know, we didn't feel completely comfortable that the right internal control structure was in place for the entire year from a financial policies and procedure standpoint to make sure that the same person wasn't authorizing a transaction, having custody of, you know, the asset itself, whether it be the cash or wherever it might be, and then recording of the transaction. And we think it's important to express to the new board, especially coming in, that having these financial policies in place and realistically looking at the strategic plan, this all kind of ties together to say, are we going to have an executive director? Because that's really a key to the internal control structure of an office here. With having one person, it's very difficult for the segregation of duties. And as an auditor, I like the fact that I hear the board approving payments. I hear the board looking at financials because it's important for me to know that you understand your responsibilities in this deal right now is to be a little more hands-on, especially with the small office staff that you have in place. The second is on the real estate owned, and I know that talking to Councilman Schlegel, the Chairman Schlegel a little bit here.
That's in the future.
Misspoke there for a moment, sir. That an inventory policy is something that you're looking into also. I'm trying to look at that and say, what are we doing with this property? How are we moving it forward? And making sure we're recording it at cost and having an all-inclusive list. A good example, some of these properties, whether they were given to you through blighted property, whether you took it over, whether you actually paid for it, it's important that we maintain a cost side to these properties because accounting standards say we need to record them at the lower of cost or fair market value. You did go through the process of getting appraisals recently, which is important on the insurance side also for replacement cost. But I also think just having an overall listing so that as a board, you have an idea of what properties are there and actively trying to sell those properties if that's the goal of the authority. And I believe, you know, that's part of what the inventory policy is going to kind of put into place. So I'm happy to see movement already. You know, when I look at management letter discussion points, a couple other items from us, account reconciliations, we need to make sure we keep performing them monthly, and that goes back to having that checks and balance, making sure somebody's checking to make sure the bank reconciliation is being done on a monthly basis and it's not having any variances monthly. And making sure you feel comfortable with knowing here's the amount of money in the bank, and get a bank statement along with that. One of the processes we see that breaks down is you as a board will receive a bank reconciliation, but nobody ever sees the bank statement. And without actually seeing a bank statement at some point, you don't have any verification just from a board standpoint that the cash you're being told is in the bank is actually physically in the bank. So it's very important to get that bank statement along with the bank reconciliation, especially when you only have one person in the office right now. It's a protection on both sides. This isn't supposed to be an accusatory towards having a one-person staff. It's actually a protection on both sides to make sure that the one-person staff feels that, you know, I have nothing to hide, but I feel better that you're looking at this, that we're both in agreement. The second is the strategic plan and budget. You know, you have a new vision, you have a new administration, we're moving into, hopefully out of a more crazy time into a more time that we can continue to move forward. Aligning the vision with the Community Development Office from a funding standpoint, and just from a vision standpoint of understanding what are we going with acquiring property and selling property. And I know you've been in a selling mode here. I know that there was some property sold off to the Parking Authority here subsequent year and also in 2020, which is excellent. It's allowing you to have resources on hand to be able to start purchasing that blighted property and turn it around. But have a plan as to, are we looking at certain areas? Are we looking at what do we want to do with the property? Well, are we rehabbing it or are we demolishing it? I think it's important that you continue looking at that and your revenue streams. You don't have a lot of rent coming in from a recurring revenue standpoint. So what's going to be your recurring revenue stream to pay for your administrative staff? Because there are certain administrative costs, whether it's personnel, whether it's insurance, that need to be covered by some sort of a revenue stream coming in the door. So as you're looking at budgets, it's important to stay realistic and realize that when you sell property, the proceeds from that property really should be used to invest into more property and not just to cover administrative costs on a year-in, year-out basis. So I just want to bring these points up. I think it's important. I know there's a lot of new faces within the last 6 months or so. And I like the fact that I already see movement, that I'm seeing this financial policy coming out. I'm seeing discussions about even the insurance side. When we started talking insurance policies a little bit this week, you know, my response to you as well, as you sell these properties, make sure the insurance carrier knows, because we don't want to keep paying for insurance that we don't have property. So it's just important to keep everybody in the loop to make sure that we move the authority forward. So last piece here, and then I can take any questions. No real difficulties performing the audit other than just the remote environment that we work in these days. But overall, the audit was completed. We did have some journal entries. I did not attach them to the management letter, but I will send them out so everybody can see them. I'll send that to Dennis tomorrow. No disagreements, no other reportable conditions. And just a thank you to Dennis for helping us through this process. We did this entire audit remotely, which is a little different for everybody. So I really appreciate his efforts there. And Chairman Schlegel for helping us out here at the end of the process also. Other than that, I believe you all have this presentation. I sent it to Dennis earlier today, so if you don't have it yet, I'm sure he can pass it along, but it does have my communication, my information on here. So you can send me an email at any point in time. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to come back and talk about anything that may come up.
Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing that. Maria, go ahead.
Yes. Hey, Chris. Regarding the budget, how can you come out to be as much realistic as you can when you don't know which property, any property is going to be sold during the year?
And as important as I think that is, when you're doing the budget, then you're also then saying, if I'm not sure what our goal is going to be, how much of your reserve, how much of that PA invest account are you willing then to use towards operations each year to be able to fund the operations of the authority? So I think when you're looking at a budget, it's just a process of saying, I have 600,000 in reserve. I'm okay with taking 60,000 of that right now to fund our shortfall in operating revenue over operating expenses, whatever that number might be. And I think that's just an authority. The board just has to get comfortable with whatever your strategic plan's going to be, I believe. I mean, that's the way I kind of look at it.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a good point because when you put in the budget together, you have to be as much realistic as you can, and by the board approving like that, you can say, okay, I'm going to be using X amount of money from the investment fund. Then you can play on that. However, if any property gets sold, then you don't even have to touch the money from the investment.
Right. So I would think that maybe a percentage, Chris.
Yep, almost like a nonprofit when you look at a spending percentage.
Yeah, a baseline there. We did ask Benny to compile a 2021 budget. I honestly, after looking at the 2020 budget and what we went through to get, baseline there, I'm almost thinking that we have to go to a zero budget baseline now and build from there based on the expenses that have come in. And then, what revenue streams we have, minimal as they are, and then understanding what we've got to do to move buildings in and move them out. And then getting into the grant process too, being more active there and being able to charge the administrative costs. Because to your point, you do have legal fees, you do have audit fees, you have expenses, office expenses and utilities and, all the like. So you're right, we need to know where those revenue sources are coming from annually too, because you never want to get to the bottom of the bucket and then you don't have anywhere to go.
Correct.
So point well taken there, Chris. Any more questions or comments for the auditor, independent auditor? Hearing none, good job there, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate being here. So,
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Job well done.
thank you.
Okay, I believe we have Mr. Ted. Could you pronounce your last name there, Ted?
Smith.
Say again?
Smith.
Okay, we'll call you Ted Smith.
Nimzik.
Nimzik, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Well, welcome here. The board had some questions regarding, our website and stuff, and you're here to answer them.
Sure.
Do you just want to give a brief overview of what, who administers this, who can upload information to the website?
Sure, yeah. In regards to administering it, I laid out the initial website as far as like accessing the information and updating it. It's very easy to do. Dennis and I were talking about getting together, but as things went along with COVID, and we never really got together to do that. But really, if anybody would like to understand how to update the website, I could certainly sit down with somebody and do that, in addition to Dennis.
What's the website? What is the website address?
It is Reading Redevelopment. Reading Redevelopment. I believe it's Authority. I should have brought the site up, but there was and it's .org. There was a .com website, but it didn't get renewed. And
Sorry, I think it was .net.
Yeah, I think it's net.
I'm sorry, .net. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Reading Redevelopment Authority .net.
Yes.
Danny,
Yeah.
make sure you get that email. I know you sent it out before, but make sure you get that email to the board when you have that. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah. So yeah, if you go to the Reading Redevelopment Authority.com, you're not going to be happy. The URL lapsed and someone took it over, which I wasn't involved with it at that point. And I believe that's why I was asked to come on to set up the site.
So, quick question. It says in the bottom, when was the last time this was updated?
End of the year of 2019.
It's here in the bottom says the corporation is 2018, Reading Redevelopment Authority.
Is that the copyright information you're looking at? I can't
Yes.
get to the website because I'm on Zoom here, but
The copyright, yeah.
yeah, that's something I can update it. That's when the site was initially done. And that doesn't update automatically. That's something that has to be done manually.
How accessible is through the mobile app?
I'm sorry, Nate, what was that?
How accessible is the website through the mobile app, through a phone?
It's very accessible. The site is responsive, meaning that it resizes to show up on the phone.
Well, I'm on it right now, and it's pretty. No, it doesn't seem like it.
Okay, let me. What phone are you on?
I'm on an Apple phone.
Okay. Yeah, I can take a look at that. Honestly, I haven't visited it lately.
So let's get to the grind of this. What's the contract in place? And what's the reason for you to be here? Are you giving us an update? Or are we looking into getting into another contract? Or what is
Well,
it?
I didn't have a contract per se. I gave an estimate early on.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Yes.
Mr. Nemsick was asked to come to the board. Mr. Fleming wanted to know, more information about this, especially last month when we, paid our bill that we owed since July. And there were some questions from the board. So they wanted Mr. Nemsick to come here today and to answer those questions. Now, for the sake of, I don't want to have an hour discussion about this. If we need to funnel this down into questions that we can send him that he can ask us, answer for us, I would rather do that. I mean,
yeah.
Which way you want to go on that? I don't want to get into a long-dated discussion here. Simply present the questions and then get answers back.
I think one thing to point out is that Mr. Nemsick is not our web administrator. I don't believe. Is that correct, Ted? You were hired to design the website.
Correct.
And to get us back into the space where we lost because we didn't pay for our domain name.
That is correct, Keith. Yes. Yeah.
So he is not our web administrator. We don't owe him anything other than the fees that we paid him to design the website that we hadn't paid until a month ago.
Yeah. And just to add to that, Keith, if I could, when I registered the domain name and set up the hosting, there was the only way you can pay for that is via credit card. So right now, everything is in my name. So, and you can't pay by, I don't even know if you can pay by check. So that was one of the reasons why I got involved in setting it up.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was a little aggressive because
no, that's okay.
I'm a little surprised that you didn't know. So I do apologize. So
no,
you're not in charge of the. You were in charge of the graphics and putting everything together.
That is correct, Nate. Yeah.
Okay, my apologies.
Hey, I grew up in Northwest Reading, so I can handle the aggressiveness.
I got you.
Brother.
I'm sitting over Northwest Reading right now.
Oh, really? Yeah. I grew up down near Bear Park. That's where I grew up.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the two things that the board was interested in last meeting was ongoing cost, which I think Keith kind of nipped that in the bud there, and you've said that the same thing. So there really is no more ongoing cost, is what I'm hearing?
Yes, unless, for instance, I can do any updates or sit down with somebody and train them how to access the site and, how to navigate around it. And my rate would be $65 an hour to do that. So
pretty reasonable. Reasonable, for sure.
So, because, to all of our points here, and even Chris said it, we need to get these properties that we have, our inventory, up on the website with prices on them, so that way we don't have to answer questions ad hoc. We can just say, go to our website, here it is. And, we're trying to condense this and, but make it more powerful to the community that we serve.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. I mean, if you want to send me that information that's current, I'll look at it and I'll give you an idea. It probably won't take more than an hour or two to do that until Dennis and I are able to get together. And if Dennis is interested in and is part of what he's going to be responsible for, but yeah.
Okay.
And that's not my call, obviously.
Any more questions or comments for Ted?
I got one. Ted,
Yes, sir, Keith.
how long is our domain name good for before we need to re-up and pay for it again?
It's on
So
a
we don't
yearly
lose it.
basis, so I believe we registered, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it was in the springtime. Is when I initiated accessing everything to set up the website. Yeah,
Okay.
and I can confirm that with Dennis.
All right, because I think we'll want to find that out. And then Chairman Schlegel, what we'll probably want to do is to get a credit card at least through our Citizens Bank account so that we can pay those fees when they come due and have those names transferred over to the Redevelopment Authority.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable with that myself.
Okay.
That was our problem with our original domain. When it came up to renew, we had no way of paying for it. And we couldn't pay via check or even check over phone. So it just lapsed.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Mr. Fleming, anything?
No, not at all. My biggest concern for asking the question was what cost. The cost I thought was a little bit high, and I was trying to find out what can we do to minimize cost. As I understand, the organization is looking at the pennies. So, with $1,800 and some $1,800, I think is what I saw.
No, it was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I thought it was a little high, but it was a contract that was already signed. So I guess the gentleman is obligated to receive his funds. But moving forward, I was trying to figure out, is there another way we can minimize the cost to get a website up?
And I think the best way to minimize costs is to make sure we don't allow our domain name to lapse again, so we don't have to rebuild from scratch again.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
That's what we ended up doing with Mr. Nimsick, was we had to rebuild our entire website again because we had allowed the domain name to lapse and we hadn't utilized it for about a year and a half.
Got it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Well, thank you for coming in here with us, Mr. Nimsick, and we need to get our staff trained and get those properties uploaded, and so we can do our business, what we're here for. So thank you for coming and being with us today.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me. And if you have questions that you want to have emailed to me, that that Dennis has all that information, and when you have the credit card set up, let me know, because I'll need to initiate the transfer of the domain name and the hosting agreements.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Question
everybody.
before you leave, Ted.
Yes, sir.
The transfer can be done at any time, or do we have to wait till it lapses?
Oh, no.
Before
It can be done at any time. I believe I have it registered with GoDaddy. So as long as you keep it with GoDaddy, it will just transfer over, and whenever it's due, that won't change when it renews,
Okay.
if that's clear. But yes, that can be done at any time.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Wellington.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'll be signing off then if there's nothing else.
Okay, enjoy your evening, Ted.
Thank you.
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, so next on the agenda here is the chairman's report. I'll be brief here. We were working on the Panoptical building to get that secured down there. We have achieved that thanks to Denny and working with the police department there. We now have to get a roll-off dumpster at some point in the next couple weeks. And hopefully we can get this youth group here, PA Youth Build, which Jamal and I had a meeting with the executive director there, Ryan Bradley, and we discussed a number of things that we can get their help with working on our properties, getting them cleaned up, maybe doing some work on properties we decide to work on. This is a really exciting collaboration that we're going to be doing, but they have said that they will help us clean out the building there. It's going to need about an 80-yard roll-off to get the stuff out there, and that was at the request of the fire marshal, because they don't want any combustibles inside that can be on fire there. So basically that's all for the chairman's report. I did meet yesterday with a tree trimmer, Arbor Care Incorporated, over at our property on Penn Street there, and I'm going to get a quote from them, and I'm going to get 2 more quotes to see how far our dollars go there and the best experience that we can get. I did get recommendation from the city's arborist, for these companies, because the city works with them on an ongoing basis. So that would be the best place to find that, and that's what I did. And thankfully they provided that. But I just want to thank the administration, all the administration for working with us to clean up the issue over there at Panoptical, because that was a bad situation there. A lot of drug activity going on there, people depositing cars, and they're starting to deposit, dumping stuff off in the back of the property on Lemon Street. So we've got to get that cleaned up and nip that in the bud, because if you let that fester, all of a sudden we got a whole lot of trash there, and we don't need to go there. I find that if you are attentive and clean up, because back in 2012-13, there was a actual live city dump, or a live dump over here on city property at Windsor and Ritter Park on the city property. And I worked over a year hand in hand with groups and stuff, and we took out of there 5 roll-offs, 70+ bags of trash, and then 3 10-wheelers of the cities. They had to actually bring their front end loader to clean the rest of it up. That's what can happen if we leave stuff go like this. So I feel good we're getting this nipped in the bud, and I just want to thank the administration and everybody for helping us with that. So that's all I have for the chairman's report. Does anybody have any questions or comment for the chairman's report?
A comment about 212 Panoptical building. We do a cleanup there at least twice a year. Now this year with COVID and everything, it's just an off year, but normally twice a year we have to do a cleanup down there, usually in the beginning of spring and usually by the end of the summer, depending on how bad it gets, because we usually get tires, box springs, mattresses. So when I was down there last week, I see that there were, I think, broken televisions or computers or whatnot. So yeah, it's typical for down there. And it's something we address at least twice a year.
Yeah, and and it goes along with our mission here is we've got to start moving this stuff out. There is tremendous interest in our properties right now. I'm getting contact information. Jamal, you can probably also say up there in CD. Denny, you too, getting the phone calls there, and people are approaching me. So that's why I say we need this central repository for our information that we can just say, go here, look at it, and then go through the requisite process, through our disposition policy. That's why you guys passed it. And let's get these properties back out to, either the tax base or to good city uses. So
I think what's happening, from what I can see, it's the administration. The change of the administration has really brought interest into our properties, because I can tell you the last time I had this many, and you as well, how many people have contacted us about our properties. In the last 4 years, I could probably count on one hand.
Well, I guess they're doing something good over there in City Hall, right? So, okay.
Ernie, I have just a suggestion.
Yeah.
In regards, is there a database that we're collecting every time somebody calls in regards to their interest?
I just write it down when they call me.
Okay. Is there any way? I believe just for the purpose of keeping everybody informed, every time that there's somebody that's showing interest in the property and are serious, and there's serious conversations happening, I would like for all the board members to be informed of it, please. Okay?
Of course, yeah.
I don't want to be in the shadows of things, and then I get stopped by another community member and I don't even know what they're talking about. Okay?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good idea there, Nate. Okay, moving forward here, down in new business. Okay, so I'm going to take the financial procedure policy first here. I did hand it out to the board after looking at the 2019 audit, and I have said since I've gotten on the board that I wanted to put a financial policy in place. That kind of sped up when I looked at the audit, and I think we need to give a show of strength to the community that we serve. We've seen something that was an issue in the audit, and I think we have to acknowledge that and move on. And I think this policy, putting it in place, will help our administration, because even though I hear what Nate says, we all want to be in the know. We are board members, we are part-time board members, and we need an administration, and we're going to get an administration. So, but the administration that we get has to have direction, and the auditor has to know when he comes and says what he finds in his audit. This is the second time I'm hearing Chris say this. I sat in the board meeting in January, and I heard the same, basically exact same thing then as I just heard today. So that's why I took the time to put this together. I did send it out to the board, for any input. Actually, I sent it to the city auditor as well. There was some input that came back. This is basically it. It sets in place the need for an audit finance committee. That audit finance committee will be secretary treasurer, the chair, and executive director will work together on the authority's finances. They will help and collaborate in developing a budget. They will work together to ensure that we have, to Chris's point, financial statements and, close our books at the end of each month. And basically, it really sets out what our administration should be doing and what our expectations are. I also took the opportunity to put in there the no gifting policy. I think as board members that we have to have the highest ethical standards, which I believe we do. But we also have to understand that we want our administration to have the highest ethical standards. And then it goes on, what is expected as far as, financial planning and reporting, revenue, what is to be done with our expenses. And it also sets out to review our financial policy at least once a year. To your point, Wellington, you asked me if it could ever be amended. I said yes, at any time. And it also sets in place when the budget is due, which is, I believe, 60 days prior to the ensuing fiscal year. And then also the audit, when it is due. Because the city also needs our audit to put in with their audit. So it just formalizes everything, puts it into one document, and our administration should follow this. And the board's expectation is, that would be the case. So, do I have a motion to approve the financial procedure policy as written? I saw 2 hands go up there.
I make a motion.
Nate is the motion. Wellington is the second. Any questions or comments?
If I could just, for everybody's understanding how bills are paid currently, if that is any question that you all have, I'm the bookkeeper. That's it. I'm not your finance guy. I'm just your bookkeeper. I work on QuickBooks, so any reports that you need are generated automatically from QuickBooks. I do not sign any checks. My name is not on any accounts, so I do not have the ability to take money out. Checks are signed by the person, the signatory on the accounts. Currently, it's Mr. Schlegel and Dr. Pepin, now that he's back on the board. So like tomorrow or tonight, when I have to initiate the transfer of the 60,000, I will send an email to our rep in Harrisburg saying we're going to need this transaction done. And what she'll do is she'll send an email verifying it and asking the signatory, which right now is the chairman, to verify that those funds can be moved. But I do not sign my checks. I do not sign any bills payable. I just put it all together for everybody and then keep the books so I can give them over to Irvine at the end of the year.
Well,
We appreciate your hard work, brother.
Sure, no problem. That's what you hire me for.
Yeah, thank you, Denny.
Sure.
And as a board, we have bylaws and we have a stated agenda. And, as I said, when I got on the board, very first day, I said, where's the financial statement? And, well, we don't do them every meeting. And, okay, how long or how often do we do them? And I didn't get an answer. So, and that's why today, when, you talked about moving monies around here, it has to be standard practice that the board has to authorize all movements of money and payment of all bills. Because I can tell you, I was on a prior board and I had a situation where a director acted outside the board's authorization and it caused quite an issue.
Sure.
I will never put myself in that position again, or my fellow colleagues or our administration. So, I thank you, Denny, for explaining that.
Normally, we always do a monthly bank statements. Because I print them, and I don't print them. I create them. I just go to QuickBooks. It asks for bills payable. It asks for this. There's 3 or 4 that we normally give out. There was a question a few months ago that someone didn't believe the numbers were right. So I figured there was no need to continue giving wrong information if it wasn't being believed. But yeah, I have all the reports, all the information that anybody needs to ever see. I keep binders of all the statements chronologically. It's just so much easier for me when it comes to audit time. When Chris or Megan, say, hey, I need this, it takes me 2 seconds to pull it and give it to them. So that I can do the same thing for anybody. I can go back probably to 2008 on some of the accounts if anybody ever wanted to review anything like that.
Well, going forward, I think this policy sets out what is expected of our administration. So we're all on the same page going forward.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just ask a question, and I just for a point of clarifications in there, since this is a new policy, I would like to ask Mr. Mooney a question, and maybe Chris as well. Would this need to be in a resolution? Would this need to be incorporated as a process, or basically developing it and sharing it with the board members will suffice?
I think they have to at least adopt it by motion if it's going to become an official policy of the board. So I think somebody would have to move to adopt the policy as written.
But
we
don't
already have that motion on the table.
We don't need a resolution or anything like that, Keith?
I don't think we need a resolution.
Okay, thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded.
Correct.
Any more questions or comments?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Lastly here, we did get correspondence from Mr. Lugo, and I think I'm going to call him David now. I keep thinking Kevin Lugo in the city. It just can't get out of my mind. He did make a proposal here. I did send it out to the board. And he has been requesting for a while, I believe, Wellington, you brought him forward also. You had been in contact with him, yes. So he did do what we'd asked him to do. And he did get a rehab proposal, which I sent out to you today. And I think for myself, it looks good. As far as the preliminary presenting us with a plan, I think it looks good. He did also make a proposal for the purchase of the property, an amount of $2,100 in March of last year. So in going back, I asked Denny to look to see if there were any costs above and beyond what we actually paid for the property, which was, I believe, $850. And there was just additional expenses of $677. And I'm sure there are, small legal and transfer fees, which I believe are still below the $2,100. We got a property sitting up there that's just basically falling apart. The elements are getting in there. We're paying insurance on it. It's a liability for us. And here we have a proposal, which I think is a good one, that we should at least accept the, the rehab proposal and also the set price. And with any input from the board in putting together a sale agreement, like a reverting clause or something like that, I think we should move forward with this proposal. What do you think?
Gentlemen, I believe the proposal is good. Just from my experience, I think it's wonderful. And like you say, all we are incurring from that is expenses, no income coming in. So I believe it's a good idea. I'm going to abstain from voting since he's a personal friend of mine. Okay, just to be transparent and keep everything as transparent as possible. Okay.
Well, thank you.
And I'm going to say just one thing. If you're going to sell the property to him as is, then you don't need to accept the rehab proposal.
Well, I think
rehabilitation is his responsibility as the owner if he buys it as is.
But if we're looking in the interest of the city of Reading, it would be nice to have people submit the proposal again, because we just don't want to get it out of our hands and not in the tax rolls. Our responsibility is not.
As soon as you sell it, it goes back on the tax rolls.
I understand, but we don't want it to get on the tax rolls, and in a year or something, it just sits there, and then somebody stops paying tax roll, the taxes and stuff, and it just sits there vacant. So I do appreciate if people do submit plans.
Well, when I say accept the rehab proposal was for you to pay him $40,000 to rehab the building. You're not going to pay him $40,000 and sell it to him for $2,100.
No, that was not his intention. The intention of that rehab proposal was to let you know that's how much he's going to spend. That was so if he had to enter into a redeveloper's agreement, that's what he will be doing, so that it can be written into an agreement stating you have to do A, B, C, and D.
Okay, so you want me to do a redeveloper's agreement with dates for completion and
Correct. That he'll
Okay.
be doing A, B, and C on this, between 90 and 80, 180 days. He'll be doing this.
and a reversionary clause in an event
right.
that he fails to? Okay,
Yeah, that's what that was for.
then
Sorry.
I misunderstood. When I read the proposal, I thought there were two separate proposals: one for purchase as is, and one to rehab the building and turn it back over to us.
No.
No, yeah, no. No, it is the, yeah, basically, Keith, to answer your question, we would like an agreement put together with a reverter clause, give them a time frame. This here proposal, they said 6 months to completion. I think it said here 6 months.
Right. Because if everyone's new, but Mr. Santana might remember, the board had sold Mr. Lugo, I believe it was 39 South 2nd. It could have been 27 South 2nd because we've had both. But he bought one, and boy, his turnaround on that rehab was fast. And he had that back up and running. He had tenants in that, and he did such a great job.
I know he does good job. I've seen his work. So, but this is long overdue for Mr. Lugo. And the reverter clause is a good idea, just to make sure in regards to the usage of this particular property, if that can be included also in the clause.
Nope,
Yes,
I understand where we're at now.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Back in March of last year, whenever it was, the board had told him it would need to stay a single-family home, but that he had the option, of course, to sell it or rent it, but it could not be converted into 2 units, which personally I don't see how that could happen. It's such a small house, but
Well, if it's
aware
going
of that.
to be converted to 2 units or so, it has to go through zoning and all these requirements.
Yes, correct. But the board had told him specifically that it could not be.
Does Mr. Logo's proposal calls for 2 units in this rehab of $40,000? Okay, so he's gonna keep it the way it is.
Correct.
And are the plans to sell the property or to rent the property? Does he indicate that?
I don't know if he indicated in that. I know when I talked to him last, he hadn't decided whether he was going to keep it for some profit coming in for a year or two, or if he was going to sell it right out.
Okay, so how is the process gonna work if he is going to pay $2,100 to purchase the property and he's going to spend $40,000 to rehab it? Does that mean that he took title of the property and it is his at this point?
That's how we normally do it. Normally, he would take title, and we will put a reverter clause in the deed.
Yes.
So that in the event he didn't make his markers for rehab, we would have the ability to reclaim title to the property.
Yes.
Okay.
So is my understanding, gentlemen, let me just talk to council for a little bit there. Is my understanding that we are also in the business of selling this property and paying the new owners to refurbish the property and then giving it back to us? Is that?
No, that's what I thought his proposal was for here, and I misread it. We normally acquire the properties, and either we rehab and then sell at market value, or we sell them to somebody who is going to rehab them themselves for less than market value and get them off of our rolls. Because we normally acquire the properties from the Tax Claim Bureau, blighted property, at some rate well less than market value. We don't normally pay full market price for properties. We'll get them for if the back taxes are $7,000, or if it's blighted, we'll take them. And I believe this property we got from the repository, which means the taxes were already cleared. Nobody was interested in taking it from the public when it went through tax sale, and we got it for free, basically.
And now keep in mind too, this the rehab plan, okay, is $45,000, and that's on today's dollars. His prices may change. You know, this person is coming in to develop a property, and let's say he wants to sell it. Let's say he wants to rent it, whatever. There has to be a little bit of meat on the bone for him too.
No doubt. I mean, he may get $60,000 for it up in that area because it's a nicer area of the city still.
Right.
Once he rehabs it.
Right.
But gentlemen, it has to add value to what, I mean, rehabbing the property and then and doing something else with it. We want to add value to whatever purchase or property is going to be rehabbed. So we in other words, if you're going to spend that kind of money and then turn it around and sell it for $60,000, and the person you sell it for is going to let it run down to the gutter again, it to me it just doesn't make sense. So that person who is, I mean, there's no way we can control who we sell it to.
No.
But it has to have some kind of standard. When we give you this property and you do whatever you need to do to rehab and put it in living condition, the person who is acquiring it should have to meet those standards as well.
Unfortunately, I don't know of any vehicle where we can require long-term what the person's going to do. I mean,
we do have a vehicle here. Okay.
Yes, we do.
We have
Denny has already said we have experience with this person. Which
no, that's not what I mean. I mean a vehicle long-term to attach owner after owner to make sure that besides code enforcement, I don't know a way for the redevelopment authority to go owner to owner to owner to make sure they keep the property at a standard that we feel we're accustomed to and should see.
We can't. And actually, those houses in that row, I went up there and I looked at it, with the exception of the one right next door, which I think is empty right now too. They have rehabbed those other houses there. I mean, one of them has the paint blasted off the brick and has it sealed. I mean, we're talking about row homes where people have put dollars in. The guy right next door has a pool. I told you about that, Jamal. I think we have a good offer here, and we can only hope. I mean, people are really starting to put money into their properties here in Reading. If you drive around, people are painting, people are doing this, doing that. My God, I moved in here, and they all had to keep up with the Jones on the block. Now I have to keep up with the Joneses, in doing things to my house. So it takes that one seed to plant it and then go. So I think it's a great opportunity here. Keith.
Yes.
The initial, I think we should do a motion to accept the set price and then authorize you.
Subject to the agreement?
Yes. Yeah, because we also have to do a background check on this with the city to make sure that, there's no outstanding taxes and all that jazz.
Maybe I would suggest to you that you authorize me as the solicitor to create a redevelopment agreement for the property and to circulate a draft to Mr. Lugo prior to the next meeting.
I think that's a good idea, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, as stated by the solicitor, do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Been moved?
Second.
Seconded by Mr.
Favor?
Fleming.
Nate, you gonna abstain?
Yep.
Yeah, he's on mute, but it looks like he's going to abstain.
Yes, I have that.
Yeah, I said yes. So, yeah.
Thank you. And just for your edification notification, NHS did, what, maybe 4 of those properties in that block?
Yeah, I think because we had acquired a bunch of those, Dennis,
Correct.
years ago and transferred them to NHS, who then rehabbed them.
Yes, because we had about 4 of them that we bought from the tax sale, and then we transferred them to NHS so they could rehab them. For whatever reason, 1404, I don't know if we bought that afterwards, but that one didn't get picked up.
No, I think NHS ran out of money.
Okay.
They had a grant, and their grant only allowed it to go, you know, it only went
Okay.
so far.
Yes, yes, that's exactly what happened. But I think since you brought up NHS, and I was not going to bring it up, I think it behooves us to do a similar contract like the one with NHS, because that is a very good contract. And Mr. Lugo will be able to benefit from that because probably he'll do a very, very good job.
So you mean using that as a template, their agreement, is that what you're saying, Jamal?
That's correct, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So you're familiar with that one, Keith, aren't you?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay, great. Denny, can you contact Mr. Lugo and tell him to expect some communication, you know, going forward?
Really?
All right. All right, I'm through the agenda. Anything for the good of the order?
I have one quick thing. As everybody knows, we have the Gateway West project that we entered into a partnership with Delaware Valley Development Corporation. And we received an ISRP grant to do some of the environmental cleanup that's necessary at the project site. In order to do that, we are the ISRP grant recipient, not the partnership that we have entered into. So the ideal is to redeed the properties back to us from the development group that we've established so that we can administer the ISRP grant, the properties get cleaned up, and then we will, at the end of that process and after the funds have been audited, we will then go back and redeed it before construction to the partnership that we have formed. Chris Lamb, the attorney for Delaware Valley Development Corporation, is working on the documents to do that. He's working on a lease agreement and then a cooperation agreement in which Delaware Valley Development Corporation or a subsidiary thereof would be responsible for administering the grant funds and the administration of the grant. But obviously, we don't have the personnel to do grant administration. They do. And then they would, in that agreement, provide us with indemnification in the event that they fail to administer the grant properly. And we would run that grant administration agreement by the folks at the state who we got the ISRP grant from to get their blessing on that. So our hope is to be able to get the drafts done, get it run through the state and get their eyes on it before our next meeting in November so that it would be available for the board at that time to pass the actions in conjunction with the document.
Mr. Mooney, allow me to ask you this question, and I'm just listening to this. I'm a little bit familiar with the Burnwood project because it is before the Planning Commission coming in for conditional final approval that we have in the works for Mr. Glenn Morgan, I think his name is.
That's him.
Are you saying that we are going to give him the Redevelopment Authority is offering him a grant as well?
So here's what happened. We owned that whole property. That was property left over from the Buttonwood Gateway project that we did. That might be 10, 12 years ago.
Okay.
But it's leftover properties that we took during that time period. We deeded those properties to we actually formed a partnership. So we are a limited partner in a partnership with Delaware Valley Development Group.
Mm-hmm.
That partnership right now has title to the properties.
Okay.
We then, with the help of Greater Berks applied for an industrial site redevelopment grant from the state of Pennsylvania and were awarded it.
That's correct, $873,000. Yes,
When we got the grant from them, we found out that we as the public entity need to be the property owner to administer the grant. They will not let a private entity administer the grant on a private property.
correct.
So we need to take it back.
You need
So
to
that
take the property back.
We need to take the property back so that we can utilize the $800,000 to do the cleanup.
And how is he gonna be able to, and I'm asking you because you know this far better than I do, how is he gonna be able to secure final plan approval, recorded plans, and call themselves the owner of the property?
We will have to do an agreement with them that gives them constructive possession of the property to complete subdivision and land development.
Okay, just for your information, everybody in there, we also from the city, we are going to give them about $500,000 under home program, which is basically to help them to building these homes in there. So they're getting about $1.4 million altogether. Okay.
Thank you. Okay,
That's all I have.
anything else for the good of the order?
There was, I think I sent an email out, 301 Washington, Ken Pick is interested in that, possibly for purchase.
Yes, we'll be discussing that. We'll be discussing that going forward.
Okay, I just wanted to let everybody know, because I know Nate had said that he wanted to be aware, so I just wanted to put that out there. We had an interest. I think, Nate, you're on speaker. I think you were talking. I mean, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to having the conversation about the property, 3rd and Washington, sorry.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
No. Good meeting. Thank you.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved. Don't laugh at me, Fleming. Say something. Are you going to move it?
No, I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry,
move it.
second.
No. I am going to move it, Mr. Chairman. We're all good.
No, you got second. Wellington got in there before you, but
Oh, you did? All right.
hey,
Oh,
great.
change it around if you like.
Yeah.
No, I'm hungry. Great job, guys. Take care now.
Good night.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Bye-bye.
your evening, guys.
Yep.